France says it will recognize a Palestinian state if a final push for talks for a two-state solution fails. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius says the country will look at holding an international conference soon to revive talks between Israelis and Palestinians. US-led efforts to broker peace collapsed in 2014, mainly because of differences over borders and settlements. Since then, there have been no moves to resume talks between the two parties. Well, if Paris were to accept Palestinian statehood, it would be the third permanent member of the UN Security Council to do so. China and Russia already recognize Palestine as a state, as do a substantial majority of the 193 member states of the UN. Earlier this month, the Vatican formally accepted Palestine as a state after a historic agreement. In 2014, Sweden became the first EU member nation to recognize Palestinian statehood. Palestine has a non-member observer status at the United Nations. Now, its flag was raised at the UN headquarters for the first time last year as a symbolic gesture. Well, Phyllis Bennis is a fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies, and she says the recognition of a Palestinian state is symbolic, but there's more that needs to be done.
It's a very good thing if we're talking about negotiations that are based on international law and human rights. If we're talking about a repeat of the 23-year-long history of US-led negotiations that were based essentially on maintaining Israeli power, enabling the occupation, enabling Israeli apartheid, if that's the kind of negotiations we're talking about, it won't do any good. If France is willing to break with their longstanding partner in Washington, that would be a very important move. If they're willing to say, this should be based not on some new roadmap, not on Oslo, not on something new, but on existing international law and human rights obligations of the parties, then I think there is hope. There is an abstract notion that you could have a two-state arrangement where both states abide by international law and the principles of equality for all, but it's going to be very, very difficult. The land, which is fundamental here, the land has been stolen. The creation of settlements where you now have such enormous tracts of land under the control of illegal Israeli settlers with no indication that any peace agreement would be involving the movement of settlers off their land, then it's not a viable two-state option. People don't live on symbolism. They live on the end of occupation. They die under occupation. They die under siege. A symbolic gesture would be important. It would be useful for a moment, but it doesn't change the situation by itself.